What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the extended cut, minimally edited podcast version of this week's episode, where we're going to tackle this question of where did all my therapy clients go, and offer some very straightforward, simple strategies you can use to help keep your practice full, even now in 2025 going into 2026. Has anyone been having a little bit of trouble keeping their practice full lately? Or perhaps you're just launching your private practice and it's taking a lot longer than you thought. Unfortunately, you're not alone, because the landscape is a-changing. Times are a-changing, and the strategies that worked before to keep your practice full aren't always working in the modern day. So today, I'm going to offer some very simple tips that you can reasonably implement to help you fill your practice if you are having this issue. This is something I've been thinking about quite a bit recently. So many therapists are talking about how their inquiries have just dropped significantly, fewer visits to their online directory profiles or their websites, fewer word of mouth referrals, wherever you're getting folks from, it's decreasing. So what's been going on with this? I do have some thoughts about what's going on, and I'll say this. In this season where I'm hearing folks share about their inquiries decreasing, my practice has stayed full. And I haven't pulled out any fancy magic tricks. I'm not leveraging AI. I don't have any paid ads. I don't have a marketing team. It's just me and my solo practice and my pretty simple marketing strategy, and my practice is as full as it's ever been. In fact, I thought my numbers were going to decrease, so I took on a few extra clients, and now my practice is even more full than it's been since I started Private Practice Skills. I don't think this is totally a random outlier blip. I think there's something about my strategy, even though I'm still leveraging old school marketing strategies, that maybe you might be able to sort of glean a little bit from my approach and not have to feel like your practice is under threat or that sort of thing. Now, first, let's talk about what's going on in our field, especially amongst therapists in private practice. I tried looking up hard data, research data about declining inquiries in therapy practices, and I wasn't able to find anything official. I think partly because it's unfolding right now in real time. And so I'm hearing about it from everyone around me, but there doesn't really seem to be much researched data on what's happening with this. But we do have Reddit. So just to kind of paint the picture of kind of the feel of what I've been hearing from other therapists in private practice, let's read a little bit what the Our Therapist subreddit has to say about this phenomenon. So I'm going to read some excerpts and comments from this thread that somebody posted in early 2025 titled, "Diminishing Referrals, Vented Advice, What Are You Gonna Do?" Within their post, they say, quote, "Since last year, my website visits are down 70%. My inquiries from Psychology Today are down 90%. My inquiries from Good Therapy and another local site I have used have actually vanished, down to 0. This started happening around April 2024. Then they share some additional thoughts about what they think is happening. Then they say, "What are y'all doing and thinking? I'm asking those of you who share this experience or are noticing this trend." Let's read a couple of replies just to kind of get a pulse of what at least some therapists are experiencing in this realm. Okay, the top comment references one of the big therapy companies that I won't name because they really like to just hand out cease and desist letters, but you can probably guess one of those big online therapy platforms. And then within their posts, they say, quote, "Some therapists on these platforms provide quick fixes, reinforcing this expectation, while more traditional therapists find themselves at odds with a culture of immediate gratification. As a result, the referral pipeline for traditional therapy has suffered. Meanwhile, large corporate-backed therapy platforms flood the market with advertising on social media and mainstream media. They've become the middlemen between clients and therapists, diverting referrals away from private practitioners." And then they go on about that. Personally, I think that definitely has something to do with the shift that we're seeing, but I don't think it's the full story. But it's definitely it's definitely at play. The next top comment says, last year and this year have been crazy slow, and I honestly feel it's a lot to do with the economy and online mic therapy. With the latter, I think a lot of people try a company that we all probably think of when we think of big online companies for therapy or whatever, and are turned off by it and falsely make the assumption that in-person therapy will be more of the same. As far as the economy stuff goes, I know that all of my friends have had to work more to make ends meet over the last 3 years and have had to cut out a lot of stuff that they don't need. I can imagine that therapy would fall under one of those things most people would consider a luxury item / service that they can skip. And then just kind of validating that this is not a one-off experience. The comments go on. I'll just read one more for now. Somebody says, quote, in the exact same boat. I haven't had a referral from Psychology Today for at least 6 months. Used to get about 3 a week. I've tried changing the text periodically, still nothing. I have been in private practice for over 15 years and make a really good salary. Excellent client retention, but like you, the new calls have slowed dramatically. So people are noticing that something's changing. We're getting fewer inquiries, and obviously that's a problem. So what do we do with this? Now, before we dive into some strategies you can use to adapt to this shift, it's really helpful to see if we can pinpoint some of what's causing this change so that our adaptations are appropriate for whatever's going on, whatever's causing this change. So this is me just speaking both from what I've heard elsewhere and also just kind of anecdotal observations of what I think might be going on here. One, we've heard already the big tech companies entering this space. I mean, every single time I research a potential title for a video I'm making, such as this one that I'm making today, inevitably, the top search result on YouTube is for the big online therapy tech company out there. They are hitting their marketing hard, throwing their marketing dollars into the online stratosphere so much. So I think those big tech companies have to be getting at least some amount of folks who would otherwise maybe be seeing a therapist in private practice. And also, whether you like it or not, a fair number of people are finding AI quite supportive. Whether it's effective or not, whether you like it or not, there are people who are turning to AI instead of seeing a therapist. It just is what it is. The next variable is the economy. Now, of course, it's easy to make an argument that if the economy is not going so well, then maybe on average folks might be in more need of therapy. But in order to pay for therapy, you need the money, and your purse strings might be tightening on you, and therapy might be one of the first things to go, or you might be looking at more affordable options like some of the online therapy companies out there. And so that might be explaining at least some amount of the drop in inquiries that we're seeing. Now, usually when I've looked around online or talked to other therapists, the reasons I've listed so far are kind of all of the reasons I hear other people name for why inquiries have decreased. It's like people have less money, they're finding resources elsewhere through AI and these big tech companies, and they're trying to save money on therapy. So those are all the reasons. But I think there's more to this story. If we step outside of therapy marketing land and we look at the land of businesses in general, who are also having to navigate the same changes in the economy that all of us are having to navigate, they too are seeing decreases in visits to their websites, for example, and online traffic. With the integration of AI into like pretty much everything that's happening online, the way people use search engines and the way that search engines operate looks very different than it did even like a year and a half ago. Like it's a totally different landscape on the internet. So if you were getting most of your referrals through the internet, even including things like paid ads online, your inquiries might look really different now than they did before. The internet is it's like a different space than it was in 2023. Now, some people might hear this and kind of enter a scarcity mindset, like, oh no, now I can't even leverage SEO to my favor because the internet is a different land. But that doesn't have to be true. The internet is just smarter. It's more tailored. It's more focused. Even 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago, when I started my San Jose therapy practice, you could just nail the right keyword a certain number of times on your website and very easily show up as one of the first search results in your city. And now that's like ancient history, because the internet is smart enough to know, like, it's not just because you use certain words a certain number of times that, your website should show up at the top of search results. Instead, the algorithm really tries to get to know the query that somebody's asking about and offer the best tailored solution to that individual in search results. And so if we can tailor our approach to the internet accordingly, it can work in our favor. And another thing that's just kind of continuously been shifting, I think, over the last decade or so, is the shift in desiring a sense of authentic marketing. In the 2000s and even into the 2010s, having someone just be an expert on something was sort of enough to market something. And now people are sort of put off by that. It can kind of smell fishy to just have a paid expert come on and sell something. So customers of any product are looking for a sense of authenticity. If I'm telling you that something is helpful, I need to genuinely believe it, or at least it needs to come across like I genuinely believe it for somebody to consider purchasing. And especially now in a land where AI is like everywhere, consumers are looking for the more humanized interactions when they're considering whether they're going to make a purchase or not, including therapy. So we're going to come back to some of these things later, but those last two shifts, I think, aren't emphasized enough by other therapists when they're talking about what's changing in the landscape of our field, that we're not getting as many inquiries. And I think tells us a little bit of something about what might be going on for those of us who aren't seeing a drop in inquiries during this season. If anything, we might be seeing a little increase in inquiries. Now, I like to try to stay on top of what other people are saying to do, advice people are giving, and a lot of other content out there that's focused on adapting your marketing to the changes that are happening can feel sensationalized and like you need to radically shift your entire marketing strategy in order to have success. And that framework can induce panic. Like, oh no, everything I've built so far, or all of the strategy I've utilized so far, I need to throw it out the window and start from scratch. And I disagree with that approach. There's no need to panic. In a lot of cases, I think some relatively small and reasonable tweaks to our approach can be enough to shift the tides so that the right people are reaching out to us and, we're getting those inquiries again. But I do think it is important to be open to adapting. I always like to tell this story. I've told it now multiple times on this channel, where when I moved into my prior office location in 2017, there was a gentleman who worked there who had been working for quite a long time, let's say further along in his career. And I remember this was in 2017, he was sharing with me how upsetting it was that he doesn't get inquiries through the yellow pages anymore. And I remember I thought it was a joke when he first said it, but he was being completely genuine. And of course, back in the 80s, you could probably list yourself in the yellow pages and just get inquiries that way. And of course, that probably doesn't work anymore. I don't know. If any of you are filling your practice through the yellow pages, please tell me everything. I would love to learn. But I'm assuming for the average therapist, that's not going to fill our practice, right? So we've had to adapt to the changing culture, landscape. The world changes because technology advances, people advance. And so we just need to be open to changing and adapting with the rest of the world. We don't have to outpace everybody else or be frantic about it. But if at some point you realize, wow, those yellow pages really are not filling my practice anymore, rather than panicking and say, okay, there must be something that's shifted in the landscape of the world that perhaps people are looking for therapists somewhere else. Can I just figure that out and strategize appropriately so that they can still find me? This is the same kind of approach I'm hoping to advocate for in this episode. We don't need to rewrite everything, but yeah, at some point the yellow pages get outdated and there's some new approach that's going to work better. And today we're in a space where for a lot of therapists, simply posting a more generalist profile on an online directory or even a website that's beautiful and easy to use may not be enough for your practice to stay full. You're going to have to adapt your strategy to the changing landscape of the internet and the world. So as you listen to some of my tips in this episode, I encourage you not to get overwhelmed, but to just think, is there one thing that Marie shares here that seems like a reasonable item for me to try, to adapt to, and just implement it? Implement it for a few months maybe, and see how it goes. And then you can adapt one more thing after that if you have the bandwidth for it. Okay, keep it in mind. Don't panic. Don't panic. Don't panic. It's gonna be okay. And yeah, I'm not gonna tell you that you have to use AI or paid ads or any of the other like trendy things that people end up talking about. If you are using AI and ads, or if you would like to, by all means, go for it. But as someone who's personally allergic to both of those things, at least for today, I've been able to get away with it without using those things. So if that's true for me, it could be true for you too. Before we get into my simple marketing tips, I'd like to thank Paubox for sponsoring today's episode. It wasn't until a couple years ago that I first learned that even with a signed BAA, Google Workspace and Microsoft 365 can't guarantee that 100% of the messages going in and out are HIPAA secure. So without a tool like Paubox operating on the back end, it's almost impossible to stay HIPAA secure unless you forego email altogether. Even if you exclusively use a secure portal to discuss protected health information with your clients, there's still going to be potential clients reaching out initially, and also some clients who will still try to email you because, I don't know, they forgot their password for their portal and they're trying to reach out. So with a tool like Paubox, you can guarantee that every single message is protected. Paubox is super easy to set up, and it's kind of a one and done situation. Like you just spend a few minutes initially setting it up, and then it's just continuously quietly running in the background. Paubox offers a 14-day free trial to everybody, and they're offering a special discount to Private Practice Skills listeners. Just use coupon code SKILLS at checkout in order to receive $250 off your first year of Paubox. That's Paubox spelled Paubox. Thank you again to Paubox for sponsoring this episode, and now on to those marketing tips. My first tip, my friends, I've talked about since day one of this channel, and that is to niche down, to specialize. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but those therapists who are getting sort of nailed the hardest in seeing that drop in inquiries are folks who are living in a more generalist space. If your profile starts to look sort of indistinguishable from kind of most of the other therapist profiles out there, you're probably going to see that big drop in inquiries. The more you can specialize, the more you can niche down, the easier it is for people to remember you, the easier it is for the Google algorithm to figure out who you serve and to make sure that it's showing your profile in front of people who are interested in that sort of support. And even in old school marketing mechanisms like networking, it's going to help you get more referrals through like word of mouth and that sort of referral. I do think we are moving away from the generalist era of therapists. I think there was a time when that kind of worked. It hasn't worked for me for a while. Even in San Francisco, my first practice back there in 2012, just putting up a Psychology Today profile and saying I help with anxiety and depression and I create a safe, non-judgmental environment, and all of those kind of key words that you see a lot of therapists use on their profile, it was not enough to generate inquiries in the very saturated market of San Francisco, even in 2012. But as soon as I started niching down, the more I niched down, the fuller my practice was. But I remember even as soon as like 5 years ago, I would hear so many therapists just say like, yeah, just throw up an online profile and then my practice stays full, which is awesome. But I think we've been moving away from that for a little while. We need to get a little bit more niche down. Now, I know some of you listening are going to hear that and still go like, oh my goodness, I have to overhaul everything. And you don't have to overhaul everything. You could just tweak a few places and see if it makes a difference. Like if you have an online profile somewhere on a place like Psychology Today, you could try tweaking just the first 2 sentences of that profile. You don't even have to change anything else, but can you tweak the first 2 sentences to be more specific, more targeted? So for example, instead of saying that you work with children, adults, individuals, couples, and families and groups, could you maybe look at one of those categories? Or instead of saying you work with depression and anxiety and PTSD and, listing a few different things, could you maybe think of one specific area of focus that you see pop up quite a bit and just emphasize that? Maybe it's you're working with folks overcoming trauma in their history and the impacts that it has. See if you can just be a little bit more focused and targeted in how you speak about yourself in even just like one or two key places. The first sentence or two of your online profile. Or can you tweak just that first section of your website, that top piece that shows up, right when you log on to your homepage, what shows up before you click on anything or scroll anywhere? Can you tweak it just a little bit to be more focused on a specific area? So the amount of effort that you have to put into it is pretty minimal, but it has the potential to have some significant payouts depending. And if you're hearing me talk about niching down and you'd like some tools, you've come to the right place because I've spoken about this extensively. So I will just link to a slew of videos below about finding your niche. And I also have my training, the Client Attraction System, which is all about helping you develop your ideal client avatar and then a marketing plan to speak to them directly. If you don't know what that means, I explain all of it in the training. So I'll link to those below and you can check them out. And as a sort of like quick litmus test to see, like, is there something a little bit more specific than a totally generalist practice, is wherever your online presence is, like an online profile or website, within the first 5 to 10 seconds, can someone arriving for the first time understand who you help and how? And if the answer is no, then see if you can tweak it until you can kind of pass that litmus test. Okay, the next tweak that I would suggest is about personalizing your practice, finding your voice, emphasizing your unique lens, your unique perspective, or just aspects about yourself that are uniquely you, even if they aren't sort of like the most central component when it comes to your niche and who you serve and that sort of thing. Even as recently as when I was in graduate school, which I started in 2008, the blank slate approach was preached as golden. Give as little of your authentic self as possible and let your client kind of project onto you without you kind of coming with any bits of your personality or authentic voice and that sort of thing. And though from a therapeutic point of view, I could see how that might be beneficial in many scenarios, at least. From a marketing perspective, it makes it really difficult. Like if you were to imagine thinking about purchasing anything and there was kind of like no identity behind it, like it could be anything. Like let's say you really love coffee or you're curious about coffee. Maybe you don't even love it yet. If something just says coffee shop and there's like no information at all about what makes this coffee shop different from like the gajillion other coffee shops that are out there, how are you going to know which one to pick? It's going to be kind of eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And in a land historically where all therapists kind of use this blank slate approach, maybe that's kind of what it looked like to find a therapist. I don't know. I wasn't super alive back when that was the more primary approach. But now in the land where you have this coffee shop, which is emphasizing, I don't know, I'm not educated about coffee, but let's just make it up. Hang with me if you're an expert on coffee. But let's say this coffee shop emphasizes, the third wave or fourth wave or whatever wave we're on with coffee. They have, this certain wave of coffee and it's delicious. And this other coffee shop emphasizes that, it's got chill vibes. It's a good place to get some studying done. Their Wi-Fi is on point. And this other coffee shop is just about getting a quick drink when you're, just stopping by a kiosk on your way to work and it's like really conveniently located. And maybe this coffee is like super affordable, but maybe doesn't taste very good. Once you have enough coffee shops giving a lot of information about their unique identity, then if you throw in the mix random identity-less coffee shop that just says coffee shop and it doesn't have any other information, people are going to look over your coffee shop and pick one of the other ones that has more information about it. And so from that lens, we also want to bring aspects of our personality, our unique voice, or, just not being cookie cutter in whatever way people could potentially be cookie cutter. I talk about this like speak like yourself, dress like yourself. In your photos, wear your hair and or makeup if you wear it, and clothing the way that you would when meeting with your therapy clients. And when meeting with your therapy clients, show up in a way that feels authentic to you. When you speak in your authentic voice. Let yourself name on your online marketing materials or networking or wherever it is that people might be finding you. Let yourself name the things that you're most passionate about, how those overlap with your therapy work, and how that impacts your therapy work. People want to hear those things so that they can then discern which therapist is going to be the best fit for them. This isn't so that we can compete with each other, but just to say, like, yeah, with those coffee shops, for example, like, some people are going to be looking for the like most best tasting coffee, and somebody else is just looking for like that really nice vibes study space. And they have different clients that are going to come be customers at each of those places. And you just want them to have a positive customer experience because they're getting exactly what they thought they would get based on your marketing materials. And it's the same idea for us in our therapy practice to say, hey, look, this is me. You don't have to tell your whole life story. You don't even have to tell any of your life story, but you're not hiding who you are, what your approach is, the things that are unique about your therapy practice or what people can expect when they work with you and that sort of thing. As much as you can let that sift into your marketing materials, the more you're going to build trust, and folks who are going to be a good fit to work with you will kind of latch on and say like, no, I don't even need to really hear from anybody else. I really want to work with you. And another tip that I feel like a broken record because some of these things are the same tips as they've always been, is to be authentic in your networking. So again, gone are the days of like, can I find the one place that offers the most referrals in general for therapists? Let's say like, oh, this specific doctor's office maybe is huge and often is referring to lots of therapists. So let me find the biggest one that's offering the most referrals and connect with them. It's more about those authentic networking connections where maybe this is a smaller professional office, but we have a lot of aligned passions and values. Maybe we're serving a similar niche, or maybe our approach is really similar, or there's something where there's kind of a shared culture or passion or value, something like that. Even if it's a smaller company or it's one other therapist, if it's more aligned, then you're going to have much more successful kind of referral connections. And if this tip feels overwhelming, one strategy is to just start by reaching out to lost connection points. Not every lost connection point, and not people that you don't really like or don't want to talk to, but like if you have that old colleague that you haven't caught up with in years, but that you always really admired or enjoyed your interactions, reach out to them, see what they're up to, say hello, and make a genuine reconnection, not just like, hey, I'm open, I'm working with list out generalist topics, please send me your referrals. But it's sort of like, hey, can we make a genuine, mutually supportive connection? I would really love that. And yes, I am also accepting clients, and here's the types of folks that I work with. Generally, when it's somebody that I've felt this like really genuine connection with, when we reconnect, even like over a decade later, they're eager and excited to touch base. And if they can hear that I have a very specific niche, people kind of perk up at hearing that and they kind of go, oh, yeah, that's really needed. Oh, that's so good to know. And it's not like they necessarily have like 5 referrals for me every week, but it's going to stand out in their memory. And if you have that more positive association together where you like each other, they're going to have a greater sense of like trust in the work that you're doing and be much more likely to refer to you if they have a referral that kind of fits your niche. Okay, and the last tip I'm going to offer just for the purposes of this episode, I know is going to make some of you cringe, but I would like to stand by what I said, that this is still a relatively simple tip. I didn't promise that it would all be comfortable, okay? And sometimes allowing yourself to adapt looks like stepping into something that is uncomfortable, but in a healthy, appropriate, patient way. All that said, the last tip that I have is video is your friend. I know. It ties in with what I've said already, right? Bringing that human element. We are not AI. We are unique. We're individuals. We have our own unique lens, perspective, approach, style, and anything that humanizes us more for potential clients is going to help us fill our practice. So you don't have to film something every day. You don't have to film something every week. You don't even have to be on video in any regular capacity, but if you've never put yourself out there on video on the internet, I think it would be a good stretch challenge for you to try to get some footage of yourself on the internet and maybe start to see video as sort of like the new headshot. Like if you were to imagine, let's say 10, 15 years ago, you wanted to book with a therapist and you checked, let's say, an online directory or their website, and their picture wasn't anywhere to be found on their website, at least for me, I would go, okay, what's going on that this person didn't put their picture on here? It's not like their picture is what makes them a real human or that somebody has to have a nice picture for me to book with them, but it validates this is a real person. Here's their picture. They're willing to put it on the internet. And it's a low bar, but it is a bar. And if I were to go to somebody's website and there was no picture of them whatsoever, I'd go, like, why aren't they putting their picture on here? What's going on there? Is there a scam? Is there that sort of thing? We're moving in the direction where video is the new headshot. So somewhere you might want to consider being comfortable showing yourself in video, because how you show up in video is going to best represent how it feels to be in the room with you during therapy. Whether you meet virtually or in person, people will start to get that gut check feeling. If they can see even like a 30-second snippet of you holding maybe your smartphone, filming yourself, please don't set up fancy lighting. Please don't, script something intense unless you really feel like it. Authenticity is key. So anything that you can say in video, even if it's just like answering some really common, frequently asked questions that kind of become stuck points for potential clients, or kind of quick wins that you might be able to share without kind of doing actual therapy over a video, that's great. Now, if you're hearing me say that and you're just about ready to panic, don't worry, you're not alone. So many therapists are like super allergic to being on video, and I get it. So if that's you, make it your goal to just get more comfortable on video without publishing it. Just save it on your phone and watch it back. And just keep recording yourself, watching it back. You can delete it right after if that makes you feel better. And just keep practicing it. Don't post it. Take the pressure off yourself and just get more comfortable seeing yourself on video. And you'll start to look more comfortable in the video the more that you do it. Because we kind of like filter ourselves. It's like my oldest daughter is 6. And of course, she has a beautiful smile. And if I pull out the phone and I say, smile, I'm going to take your picture. Listen, she gives a really awkward smile, okay? It's not her genuine smile. That's normal, right? So you kind of have to keep trying it and like practicing it in a weird way to be authentic, like for your presence on your video to actually come across like how you come across, without it being that sort of like the awkward smile that my 6-year-old gives in pictures because she knows she's getting her picture taken. It takes some practice, and that's okay. That's normal. It is a weird thing that we take videos of ourselves and post them on the computer. And you don't have to start a social media and post it there. It could be on your website. It could be on your online directory profile. But starting to move towards seeing video as the new headshot, I think it's already been happening, and I think it's only going to continue going that way. So making moves to adapt and feel more comfortable with that, I think, is only going to serve you well. Okay, see, that wasn't so bad. I promised that these would be doable, simple enough changes, even if they're challenging. There's things that you can do. So I encourage you to just be open to stretching yourself a little bit without feeling like you're stretching outside of what feels authentic or challenging yourself to the extent that you are sort of losing a sense of groundedness in why you're here, what you're doing, and why it matters. It's incredible work that we're doing, and we're just trying to make sure that the people who really would love to work with us can still find us and be really excited when they find us. I think that is like the best feeling mutually when the therapist and client are like, yes, I understand why. Yes, this makes sense. We kind of both see it. So yay, and let's carry on. Now, was this a comprehensive marketing plan for every human? No, but I think for a lot of folks who are hitting this snag where they're seeing inquiries go down, it's going to be really helpful. And something I wanted to touch on that might only make it into the extended cut version of this episode is just because you're seeing traffic slow down on, say, your website, your online directory, or even referrals, like inquiries coming in, doesn't necessarily mean that like the inquiries that are a good fit are slowing down. It might mean that, but I've noticed, for example, for me, I'm not getting the inquiries that I'm having to refer out quite as often. And I'm getting kind of sustained inquiries from folks who, as I hear from them, I go, yes, I am so happy and capable of helping you. Like, you're right in my wheelhouse. Let's meet up. And I used to get more inquiries where, as you know, we get on the phone call, I'm thinking like, I don't think I'm quite the right person to work with this individual, and I need to refer out. So traffic doesn't necessarily equal, quote, quality leads. Traffic is a data point that's helpful to keep track of. Like, if 0 people are visiting your website, that's an important variable to consider. But traffic doesn't necessarily equate to conversions, meaning somebody who ends up booking with you. So that's just like a note of encouragement that I think the kind of algorithm changes and things like that are trying to be a bit more streamlined. And you might be getting fewer inquiries or traffic, but the ones that you get might be higher quality, if that makes sense, like a better fit. So it could be more helpful to keep track of those things, is what I'm saying, than like how many people visited your website or how many followers you have on social media or that sort of thing. Well, I hope you found this episode helpful, whether you're just starting your practice or maybe you've had a full practice for decades and it's only just starting to slow down now. I hope these are some helpful tips that you feel like, you know, you can implement. You can give it a good go. Well, thanks for hanging in this episode. And if you have found some sort of tweak to your marketing to be super successful for you, especially if I didn't cover it in this episode, feel free to leave a comment below so we can all glean from each other's wisdom and experience and, you know, just keep adapting to the changing times. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.